Another week of Mets baseball has ended, which means it is time to recap the week of the New York Mets, the good of the week, the bad, and everything in between.
On 3-2, Vader swings and misses, strike three. He struck him out. 5 Met pitchers combined for the second no-hitter in New York Mets history.
All right, so I'm Frank About Sports, and this was one of the biggest weeks for the New York Mets. It's a week that was talked about before it even started, way in advance, because of the big West Coast swing facing the better teams in baseball, the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Angels. Now, as the season progressed, we saw that all of a sudden the Angels were not necessarily an elite team with the big losing streak that they had that led to Joe Maddon being fired, but you wouldn't be able to tell if you saw the most recent game where the Mets got absolutely shelled by the Angels, losing 11-6 after having the really nice win. Let's talk about the good of the week. And the good of the week is that despite all the bad things that have happened and all the sky is falling and all the other teams in the division playing well, the Mets still are in first place. Before their Sunday game against the Angels, they're 5 games up on the Braves. If they win, they go back to 5.5. They lose, it goes down to 4.5. You know how it works. And they still have the best record in the National League, which is really important when it comes to playoff seeding and getting home field advantage, first round bye, all the additions that have been made to the Major League playoff schedule and the way they handle things. And the Mets have definitely had some really nice wins. I mean, just to go from Sunday to Sunday, they had that huge win against the Dodgers, splitting that series. You had the Adonis Medina getting out of that big 10th inning with Betts and Freeman. Then you had the cash interference with Trey Turner, but you had big hits from Eduardo Escobar and J.D. Davis in that game to really help you win that one. And you followed up with a great Monday night game against the San Diego Padres where the offense was looking really strong, scoring 11 runs, but then really quickly it went to bad and you lose 7-0. You have Pete Alonso getting hurt, Starling Marte getting hurt. 3 of the first 5 batters for the Mets getting hit by pitches by Yu Darvish, yet Darvish stays in the game and ended up dealing the rest of the game. And you really felt like the wind came out of the Mets sails because Pete Alonso was a guy that right now he is in the MVP conversation. He has done just about everything for this New York Mets team, and he's a guy that has counted for such a crazy portion of the New York Mets total offense and the runs they score. Luckily, he did come back, and he hit a home run on Saturday, but for the most part, I think Pete Alonso still looks a bit out of sorts. He's popping up more pitches than usual. His timing does seem a bit off, and that's what's going to happen when you do have a hand injury. So you hope that the Mets could get the full Pete Alonso that they've had for the majority of the season, really be that MVP caliber player that he has been. And to go along with the bad, that very next game against the San Diego Padres, with New York Mets lose 13-2 as Chris Bassett continues to have his struggles, giving up 7 runs. 6 of those were earned, but then you had Negosek with a really rough outing, giving up 4 runs. And you also had Joey Rodriguez giving up a couple runs. So it was just all around really poor pitching performance by the Mets, which was extremely disappointing because they got off to such a good start in the series in that first game where Carlos Carrasco pitches really well. You have the cycle by Eduardo Escobar, and you're feeling pretty good. You're like, okay, the Mets had a big one on Sunday, big one on Monday. Then when you have the Darvish game followed up by this and end up losing that series against the Padres after winning the first game, that definitely was very disappointing. But then you get back to in between when the Mets win the first game of the series against the Angels, winning 7-3. You had a big game by Brandon Nimmo, a big game by Mark Canha. Once again, after winning the first game, seeing the offense play well, seeing the pitching do a really good job, the combination of McGill and David Peterson, you get off to a good start against the Angels. And you go, okay, the Angels have been struggling. This gives us a really good opportunity to win the series. But the very next day, you see Carlos Carrasco finally have a bad start. Carrasco has been pitching really well recently, but it was followed up by really poor pitching performance out of the bullpen. Jake Reed comes in his first outing since being called up. After Colin Holderman, he also pitched poorly against San Diego, ended up going on the IL with shoulder impingement. So Jake Reed's filling in, and he gives up 3 runs, followed by Chasen Shreve, who also gives up 3 runs. So again, just an all-around very poor pitching performance. And it took a while in this game for the Mets offense to finally wake up. And by the time they did, it was too little too late. It was nice to see Khalil Lee hit a 3-run homer, but the game was out of reach, so it didn't really matter. As I mentioned, Pete Alonso also had a home run. But the score the way it was, it really didn't make too much of an impact. That's left into the hands of Taijuan Walker on Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN to really come through and hopefully win the series for the Mets and finish this tough 10-game trip at 500. If the Mets could do that despite all the bad things that have happened, that's all you really could ask for at this point. He'll be going up against Patrick Sandoval, who's had a good year. Obviously, Mike Trout made his return last night, and he looked like he didn't miss a beat. I mean, Mike Trout had been struggling, prior to his injury, but hitting 2 home runs, couldn't be able to tell that he had been struggling. But Starling Marte will also be making his return. Is Marte actually going to be 100%, or is it going to be similar to Alonso where it's like, okay, the player is back, but is he really that same guy he was prior to the injury? And to get back to the bat, it's just really inopportune timing for the Mets that while they've had, these good games and bad games, and being right around 500, the Braves have gone on an 11-game winning streak. So even though the Mets have won a game, those games that the Mets have lost, that's where the Braves have continued to gain ground. And like I mentioned earlier, right now only a 5-game disparity. The Phillies, on the other hand, finally lost a game after winning 9 in a row. So the Mets are trying to keep them right where they are. They'll be at 8.5 games before the Sunday night game begins. The Marlins had also won 5 in a row, but after losing to Houston, they will fall back to 10.5 games. So the Braves are the real threat. I don't worry about the Phillies. Their defense, you saw it in their game against Arizona. They had a really bad error that led to a big inning from the Arizona Diamondbacks. We know the bullpen still is not great. Miami does not have the offense to really balance out that great starting pitching that they have. So Atlanta, the team that's won the division year after year, the team that's the reigning World Series champions, is the team you really have to worry about. And the encouraging news is that we see that DeGrom and Scherzer, they've both been progressing really well. They're going to face live batters soon. So we're hoping we see them maybe end of this month, start of next month. So they are on the way. And after the series against the Angels, the Mets are going to face the Brewers, who do have a 34-28 record. They're 2-8 in their last 10 games. So Milwaukee has been struggling. They've had some injuries in the rotation. The lineup is not amazing. So the Mets have got to take advantage of a struggling Milwaukee team, do well in that series. And then they're going to face the Marlins for the first time, and they're a really good pitching staff. And even though the Marlins, they'll be under 500, they always give the Mets a really tough time. So we've talked so much. Is this Mets team different? Are they legit? We've seen so many times when the Mets get off to good starts and they kind of fizzle out. They were in first place for over 100 days last year. If they're able to beat up on the Marlins, that definitely would be a good sign in seeing that this team is indeed different from previous New York Mets teams. And then once those series are over, I'll be back for another week recap. So hope you guys enjoyed this. Make sure you are subscribed to this Mets Weekly Empire Sports Media channel featured on empiresportsmedia.com. It's a great website for all your New York content, Mets, Giants, Yankees, Jets. And you also get daily content from us right here on this channel. You have Carson and Andrew Monday through Friday and their discussions, TonyMetro on Saturday, and myself, Frank About Sports, on Sunday. So thank you guys for watching. Let's go Mets.